everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Thoughts. And man, this one took a while. I mean, I can't be upset, This is mainly Netflix's fault and not anybody else's, but man, this took forever. Today we are finally getting to talk about Beastars Episode 2, but before we do that, I do want to give a quick thank you to @TheLynWick and @NachoGashardo for sharing last week's video on Beastars, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in one of these Beastars videos, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me @JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Now let's go ahead and get into it though, except not really, because I actually need to give a specific shout out to somebody in this video, that being Post-Apocalyptic Subs, aka PAS, because they are the ones actually working to get these videos to us weekly, as opposed to, Netflix. Fan subbing, when you think about it, should really be a thing of the past, and PAS even says so on their website, like they agree. But when you have sites like Netflix, or just shows that don't get picked up by anything, unfortunately, fan subbing is still required. And people really do seem to brush off fan subbing as just like, whatever, but then become impatient when the fan subbers take too long, and to both of those groups, I say, screw yourselves. When I was getting impatient about wanting to watch episode 2 of Beastars, that had nothing to do with the fan subbers at all, and it's not fair to blame them considering they're not getting paid to do so, and they're not the service that you're paying for to actually see. I can't imagine many people don't have Netflix at this point. So with that said, and the amount of people who have been pissed with Netflix about them not streaming anime weekly when, the whole point of seasonal anime is to watch the friggin' thing weekly, it's baffling and honestly kind of silly to me that Netflix still refuses to do so, and the fact that PAS has to step up to do it for them. But I wanted to give a genuine shout out to Post-Apocalyptic Subs. They're doing the Lord's work. They're doing good work, and if people can just be nice to them. I don't believe they have an official Twitter or anything, but if you see them, like if you stumble across the site and you go to their comment section, just say good things. Be kind to them. They're really putting in work for nothing other than the fact that they enjoy the show and they love anime. So be kind to them if you stumble across them on the internet. But with that shout out said, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the big thing that I want to talk about this week. And that is stop motion opening. What the freaking heck was that? That is so... Oh my goodness, that reignited the inner Tim Burton loving kid inside of me. When I was growing up, I was a huge Tim Burton fan, in particular the stop motion stuff. I loved Nightmare Before Christmas, and growing up, I really got into Corpse Bride. I almost said Princess Bride, but I like that show too, but that's not what we're talking about. But I was also really into Corpse Bride and Frankenweenie and just stop motion stuff in general. Stuff like Coraline I love, and of course the old Rankin Bass stuff for Christmas. Stop motion has sadly fallen out of favor in recent time. So to see it show up in the opening for this show, which also has 3D animation, which is relatively new in terms of, well, I shouldn't say new, it's not new, but it's relatively uncommon to see fully 3D anime. So to see this fully 3D anime have an opening from a sort of like relic when it comes to animation, not relic as in like it's outdated and nobody uses it anymore, but it's just an old hat, and it's abundantly charming. I can't stress enough how much I was like pleasantly surprised to see this stop motion opening, and I hadn't heard the song, by the way. Everybody was like, Wildside's the best, Wildside's the best, oh my god, I love Wildside, and I was purposely avoiding it. I was like, no, I want to wait, I want to see it in the opening, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to listen to like the full track or anything, I want to see it with the visuals, then I will listen to Wildside, and Wildside is so good, oh my goodness. This opening, maybe I'm biased. In fact, yes, I am biased. That's just a fact. But having a stop motion OP in 2019 is by far one of the coolest things. I think this whole year, I think this stands up as one of the better openings, because again, when's the last time you saw a stop motion opening for an anime? Come on. The OP definitely hints at a lot of what this episode is going to talk about overall, and I'm assuming a lot of what the show itself is going to talk about. Seeing Legosi and Bunny Girl, whose name I have forgotten, I will relearn it by next week, I promise. But seeing the two of them sort of dance in the OP was fun. Seeing them like standing on top of Lewis's like antlers in the very, very beginning of the OP was great. I loved it. It was just such a like, again, just such a pleasant surprise. I'm so happy. Like I was so like, by the end of it, I felt such like content and excitement to start this week's episode. I was like, yeah, like it reignited an old passion, and it sort of sparked this passion for stop motion again. And just, you know, I really think too stop motion works, because a lot of like the movies that I've seen that are stop motion are very Tim Burton-y, and that sort of weird, strange feeling perfectly suits Beastars when you really think about it. The OP definitely hints that it was Legosi who took out Tem, and we basically get that, like, that sort of like hint as soon as the episode starts. Following the OP, we get the big like fighting, Legosi trying to fight his instincts, that whole scene. And at least that's what I interpreted it as, since we see this like shadowy figure talking to Legosi. I can only assume that's his more carnivorous animal instincts, like talking to him, saying like, dude, do it. You've been wanting this. You want to sink your teeth into prey. That's who you are. That's what you are. And it was spooky. And I liked that whole friggin' thing. But that whole scene, and even like shots from the opening, really hints that it was Legosi who killed Tem. Now, I don't want to believe that. In fact, I kind of outright reject that, because it feels too easy. The entire episode, I was sort of like anticipating something major happening, like Legosi being confirmed as being the one who killed Tem, or like maybe a hint at like somebody else who killed Tem or something like that. I was expecting something, because a lot of manga fans were saying like, dudes, episode 2, something's gonna happen in episode 2, it's gonna break your heart, oh my goodness. And I don't know if the thing that was supposed to break my heart happened in this episode or not, because there is something that is like a bummer, but it wouldn't have broken my heart. So maybe manga fans are either overreacting, or we just didn't get it in this episode. Manga fans, if you're watching, do let me know. Don't actually tell me what it is. But if there is something that was supposed to be really heartbreaking early on that should have been in episode 2 that might be in episode 3, let me know, or let me know if the heartbreaking thing that I'm thinking of is the thing that already happened, that being Lewis's freaking leg. But I'm gonna save it. Put a button on that. I'm going to get to it later in the video. Lewis's leg is like a whole thing that I want to talk about. But I want to talk specifically right now about Legosi's instincts. That scene is so tense, and it's a phenomenally handled scene. Like, having the instincts actually take shape and like talk to Legosi was brilliant, and like absolutely sold that like Legosi's fighting this inner beast inside of him. And he's trying to sort of fit into the mold that society has made for him to be kind, but really inside he's still a wolf, right? He still has instincts to hunt prey, you know, like he's still a beast inside, but he's trying really hard to kind of control it not to eat this poor bunny girl. This bunny girl senpai, because she's actually older, so that totally works out. It's just such a brilliantly handled scene. The vibe is so unsettling. The seiyuu totally sells this like scared but trying to be confident type tone, and it's just a brilliantly directed scene. Very haunting. It's, you know what?
It's spooky.
You're dang right, it's spooky. It's just such a spooky scene. I loved it. I thought it was great. And the way it ended with her running away and him like scratching her arm, and you're like, wait, is she gonna like remember this? She claims that she doesn't, but I really think that she does. It's intense stuff. It was such a brilliant scene, such a good scene. This is immediately followed by the whole Lewis thing. And I'm gonna talk about Lewis falling, but I'm basically gonna talk about Lewis as a whole in this part. So I'm not just gonna talk about Lewis falling, that one scene. I'm going to talk about like the whole 9. And Lewis is a character who I feel like I owe an apology to, because I totally misjudged him big time. When the goat kid was rehearsing with Lewis, in the dark, mind you, which is just a terrible idea, but when they were rehearsing and the goat kid's about to fall, Lewis, without flinching or hesitating, reaches out and pushes the kid back so that he falls instead of the kid, or at the very least, like, he protects the kid. Like, and I don't remember if they fall together or if Lewis falls and pushes the kid back. I don't totally remember, but basically they take a tumble, and it results in Lewis really banging up his leg. Now, you guys, I don't know how many of you guys took theater. And if you did, you already know what I'm going to say. But falling off the stage, or even just seeing someone fall off the stage, is frightening. When I was a theater kid, either my first or second year, I don't totally remember, but we were rehearsing, and I was in the crowd. I was talking with a friend of mine because I was like the director at the time. So actually, I think if I was directing, then it had to have been my second year. But we were talking about this scene that we had to do, and the choreographer was like trying to run the girls through like what this dance step was supposed to be. And this one girl, I won't say names, but this one girl was twirling and fell off the stage, and everybody turned, like, because you can't miss it, like, when something like that happens. So we see her fall, and I swear I saw this girl fall in slow motion. It's because from far away, it doesn't look that high up, but until you've actually stood on a stage and looked out, you have no idea how tall the stage is. And falling off the stage is absolutely terrifying. I've never fallen off, thank goodness. But maybe it's just my bizarre sense of vertigo. Maybe it's just the fact that it sounded like she hit the ground with the power of 1,000 suns. But watching someone fall off the stage, everyone in that theater, everyone's heart stopped for like a solid minute. Falling off the stage is no joke. So when Lewis fell, I'm sure other people were like, oh, it's not even that tall. Nah, it's tall. Like, falling off a stage is tall, and it hurts like you wouldn't believe. So when Lewis fell, I knew it was bad, even though he's like, oh, no, this is nothing. I'm like, nah, bro, that's gonna hurt. But I wasn't expecting it to be as extensive as it was, because Lewis really looks banged up. Like, he should have gone to the nurse. But it's part of the reason why I feel as though I've misjudged Lewis, because this dude, not only does he not go get his leg looked at, you see him hobbling. It's clearly in pain, but then when they call for him, he rights himself up, he lifts his shoulders up, and he waltzes all out on stage, ignoring the pain and acting through it. Lewis is a friggin' champion. Lewis is a Beastar. Judging by the very brief comment that we get on what Beastars are in this world, I gotta say, Lewis, to me, is the peak pinnacle of what they're looking for in terms of a Beastar. Lewis is a leader. Lewis is maybe a little too foolhardy, but he's strong, he's courageous, he looks out for his fellow students. He's just a good dude, even if he does come off as very arrogant. In the first episode, I thought he was super arrogant, but now I see that while he is still sort of cocky, I definitely misjudged him. He is a strong character. I'm very curious to see where this whole leg thing goes. Lewis, man, get it looked at. Trust me, it ain't worth it, dude. It ain't worth it. Lewis even stands up to carnivores at one point. At several points. We've seen him stand up to Legosi. We've seen him stand in Legosi's face. Legosi, who is huge, by the way. There's a big height difference between Legosi and basically everybody in the show. And Lewis has had no fear talking to Legosi, and he had no fear breaking up that fight in the cafeteria. And let's go ahead and talk about the cafeteria, actually, because very briefly, because I don't have a whole lot to say, but it's interesting. The cafeteria is lovely. I thought the layout for the cafeteria is brilliant. The fact that there's a big tree in the middle of the cafeteria with little steps, and that's where all the rodent students, like, they run up there, like the squirrels and stuff like that. They run up those little steps so that they can eat in the cafeteria with everyone else, but much higher up so they don't have to worry about getting stepped on. And they even say that the rodent students typically walk on the side of the walls so that they don't get stepped on by the bigger students. Now, this does sort of raise a question, since the bunnies should also be not that much bigger than the rodent students, but we've seen most of the bunnies be the same size as average students. I'm not sure how that works. I guess maybe just if you're in the rodent family of animal, you are the size you're typically supposed to be, while everybody else is like average human height. It's a thing. I'm not necessarily knocking it, because I think it's interesting the fact that there's even size differences at all. But more interesting than that, in the cafeteria, it is mentioned that meat has been criminalized. And I didn't even think about it, but yeah, of course it was. I was genuinely surprised that I never thought about the fact that, the fact that everybody's an animal and there seems to be no humans, everything would be different. Like, every facet of society would be different. and you can't have meat in a society of animals that act like humans, because most of the animals that we use as meat, like, it's just a mess. Like, how would you even? You can't. So meat being criminalized makes a mountain of sense, and them trying to balance the food for the carnivores with the food for the herbivores is genuinely really interesting to me. I would love to know a little bit more about how they how they criminalized meat. How they were there meat plants prior to this? Like, I would love to know more about the lore of the world, because just that one line made me so curious about how the world itself works, and like the way the school works, and just like the setting is just interesting. Beastars has a great setting. Thus far, anyway. I don't know if we're ever if we never get to learn more about it, then I'll be disappointed. But so far, yeah, man, I'm like really, really fascinated by the world here. And you know what else I'm fascinated by? The visuals, because my goodness, the visuals never cease to impress in the show. The visuals of the whole flower scene, right? Like, that was great. Now, there's a scene at the very tail end of the episode that was less great, because that's some furry bait right there. But hey, whatever floats your boat, it ain't my business. So trust that when I say the visuals, I do not mean that end scene. I mean just the way that they like frame the inner thoughts of Legosi with like what he's seeing. Like every time that they overlay his face over top of like the flowers and the bunny girl senpai whose name I'm forgetting. But that every shot of that is brilliant. That whole flower scene is brilliant. And it really makes me think that maybe I'm reaching, but I feel like there's a theme that the show's trying to aim for, of like trying to bury our instincts and conform to what this society is telling us. And I know they're animals. I know it's just a silly anime, but I do think that they're trying to heavily like imply like this is a metaphor for life. Like I think they're trying to push that as like suppressing. What does it mean to suppress your inner beast, you know? What does conforming to society mean? Is conforming to society even really a bad thing, since it seems like all these kids seem to get along, carnivore and herbivore? So it's interesting. Maybe I'm reaching. I'm probably reaching. But I just thought it was interesting and I wanted to bring it up before the video ended. So with that said, everybody, I'm gonna go ahead and put this episode into the A tier. I thought this was a brilliant episode. It's not as amazing as the first one because there's not that like shock at how great Beastars is. Like we already know Beastars is pretty solid, so I feel comfortable putting this week's episode into the A tier. It's impressive, keeps the momentum going, and I'm really excited for more. On that note, everybody, that just about wraps everything up. But before we go, as always, I want to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon. Namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Dominic, Urza, Ginkotaku, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Omna Garamond, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Tristan, and Verdon. Thank you all so much for your continued support over on Patreon, and hey, if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then by all means go ahead and check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get for as little as $1 a month, and get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. But on that note, everybody, that's going to be a video, so I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, you've probably been on the internet long enough to know what to do already, so I ain't going to tell you, but I will say that it is appreciated. And if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.